Welcome to the 129th edition of Spooky Reviews from Spooky Ventures. Today I'm looking at a DVD of a full moon film called Petrified. This is sort of a retro review because this movie and DVD came out in 2007. In some ways it feels like Full Moon's version of a mummy movie, but they throw a lot of curveballs into it. The film opens with an illicit deal underway. A professor is buying a large crate and a small box from some unsavory characters. After the transaction is complete, one of the sellers shoots the man and he falls onto the crate. That unleashes the mummified remains that were inside that crate, and that entity comes crashing out. Now, I mentioned curveballs. There are plenty of things here that keep this from playing out like a straightforward mummy movie. First, there are agents in pursuit of this package, and one of them manages to run off with the smaller box, which contains a mummified hand. Secondly, he seeks refuge in a clinic said to treat women suffering with nymphomania. Finally, this is no ordinary mummy, but actually something from outer space. Now, I want to mention something that I noticed that I think must have been an intentional Easter egg. There is an episode of the original Star Trek series called Dagger of the Mind. That episode starts with a man escaping from a crate, much like the entity escapes from a crate at the start of this film. But that's only really the first connection. The Enterprise crew has to visit a facility for treating mentally ill prisoners, which, as you can imagine, bears some resemblance to the facility in which a lot of this movie takes place. The protagonist of this movie meets a woman posing as a doctor, and her name is Helen, and her last name is pronounced Noel, but if you look at the credits, it's actually spelled Noel. A critical character in that Star Trek episode is named Dr. Helen Noel. If that name had been the only thing, I would have thought it was just a coincidence. But later in the movie, we meet Dr. Van Gelder, who has been tied up in the facility. The character in the Star Trek episode who escapes from the crate at the beginning of the episode is Dr. Van Gelder. Now, with both of those names being used and sort of the other coincidental comparisons being made there, I have to believe that it was intentional. And I love little nods like that. But the comparisons really end there in terms of the story. The movie is a little slow at times, and the production values and acting are not always the best. However, it's very entertaining, and really redeems itself for any missteps before it's over. Sure, this movie is at times silly and ridiculous. There are plenty of frights and creepy moments to make up for that, though. You sort of expect full moon movies to be over the top in terms of craziness sometimes, so that's not really a big surprise. This thing has quite a few bonus features. I particularly liked the making of featurette, but that's just one of the great things included here. This is perhaps not the best full moon movie ever, but it's certainly worthy of inclusion in their catalog, and I would say in your collection. Spooky Ventures is the home for spooky content and spooky merchandise on the web. Check it out today at spookyventures.com. And remember, always keep it spooky.